Good morning. This meeting is now called to order. For those around the table, please turn on your microphone when speaking. For those participating via Zoom, please state your name when making a comment or asking a question. The MAG public comment process allows members of the public to comment on items that fall under MAG's jurisdiction. If you'd like to comment at today's meeting, please complete the request to speak form. MAG staff can assist with any questions you may have. If you parked in the garage, parking validators are available on the information table in the hallway. If you purchased a transit ticket to come to the meeting, please see staff for a ticket. Hearing assisted devices are available from MAG staff. We'll now begin with a roll call of all members.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the Regional Council. I will go down the list of members alphabetically. Please unmute and indicate if you are present. Mayor Beck. Mayor Mark Stanton as proxy for Mayor B.N. Wilner. President Burnett. Mayor Crane.
Here.
Thank you. Ms. Daniels.
Present.
Thank you. Mayor Dickey.
Here.
Thank you. Chair Gallego.
Here.
Thank you. Supervisor Galvin. Mayor Giles. Thank you. Supervisor Goodman. Supervisor Goodman. Mayor Hall.
Here.
Thank you. Mayor Hartke.
Here.
Thank you. President Javier. Mayor Hermosillo.
Present.
Thank you. Mayor Lavalde.
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. Governor Roe Lewis. Mr. Meck.
Here.
Thank you. Mayor Molina.
Present.
Thank you. Mayor Morris.
Present.
Thank you. Mayor Osborne.
Present.
Thank you. Mayor Ortega.
Present.
Thank you. Mayor Pereira.
Present.
Thank you. Mayor Peterson.
Here.
Thank you. Mayor Pizzillo.
Here.
Thank you. Mayor Rodriguez. Mayor Schoaf. Mayor Sykes.
Here.
Thank you. Mayor Smith.
Here.
Mayor Schoaf is here.
Thank you, Mayor Schoaf. Mayor Walter. Mayor Wires.
Present and accounted for.
Thank you. Mayor Wise.
Here.
Thank you. Mayor Wheatley.
Here.
Thank you. Mayor Wilson.
Here.
Thank you. Is there anyone that I missed?
This is Mayor Woods from Tempe. I'm here.
My apologies. Thank you, Mayor Woods.
Problem being at the end of the
Thomas Galvin with Maricopa
Mayor
County.
Peterson
I'm here.
just reminded me about.
Mark Stanton with the Town of Paradise Valley, Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Stanton.
Thomas Galvin with Maricopa County.
Thank you, Supervisor Galvin. Madam Chair, we have quorum.
Wonderful. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to
The flag of the United States of America
and to the republic.
Thank you all for joining us. A special welcome to Maricopa County Supervisor Tom Galvin. Supervisor Galvin is the Vice Chair for the Board of Supervisors and represents District 2. And we want to welcome him to the MAG Regional Council and thank you so much for serving our region.
Thank you, Mayor. Much appreciated. I'm looking forward to it.
We would also like to recognize President Burnett for her service to the Fort McDowell Yavapai Nation, to the MAG Regional Council, and to the entire region. Thank you, President Burnett, for your efforts and many accomplishments in leadership. Our next item is call to the audience. This is the opportunity for the public to comment on items that fall under MAG's jurisdiction, but not on the agenda, informational items, or items on the agenda for discussion and not for action. We have received one written comment, which was provided to the members from Blue Crowley. Staff, do we have any additional requests for today's meeting?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We just have one written comment for the call to the audience, which has been provided. There are no other written comments for any other agenda item on today's agenda.
Wonderful. Thank you. We will go to informational item number 4, which is an amendment to our fiscal year biennial unified planning work program and budget for the Pima Road corridor study. This one is a real priority for Mayor Crane, and so I will begin with Mayor Crane.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, this is a project which is very interesting and for us. Carefree is on the basically the northern end of Pima Road. So this project is roughly 0.3 miles of our town, but most importantly, it will help with improvements to the Pima Road Cave Creek intersection. There was a fatality there in December, so we're very keen on seeing improvements done, capacity studies, and just making that part of the roadway much more efficient. So we're very thankful for this. So, anyway, thank you.
Thank you so much for your leadership on such a important and timely project. Any additional comments on that item? Next, we will go to the consent agenda. Items 5A through 5E are on the consent agenda. Does any member of the committee have questions or request a presentation on any of these items? Hearing none. And then again, we have no request to speak on this one. Do we have a motion for the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Motion from Mayor Wires, second from Mayor Osborne. We will have those participating in the meeting online now take part in the voice vote by turning on their cameras and unmuting their audio. We need to see the faces of everyone to participate in the voice vote. For those who cannot or do not wish to turn on their cameras, staff will conduct a roll call vote. Staff will only call on those virtual participants who did not turn on their camera. Members, please leave your cameras on until after the roll call vote so that staff can count the people's names whose cameras are not on. Can I have a voice vote of those in the room and those online? Those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, say
Aye.
And again, leave your cameras on. Staff, can you do a roll call of members participating virtually who did not turn on their cameras?
Thank you, Madam Chair. It looks like everyone did turn on their cameras and the motion passes.
Nicely done, everyone. Item 6 is recognition of February as Teen Dating Violence Prevention Awareness Month. Item 6 is on the agenda for approval. The item will be presented by Human Services Director Kelly Williams.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the MAG Regional Council. Time today. The purpose of this presentation is to share information about activities related to honoring February as Teen Dating Violence Prevention Awareness Month, and to invite your participation in these activities and to offer a resolution for your approval. Joining me today is Dolores D.C. Ernst, Vice Chair of the MAG Regional Domestic Violence Council and Chair of the Teen Dating Violence Prevention Work Group. Vice Chair Ernst also serves as Program Administrator in the Community Assistance Program with the City of Phoenix.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Council, for letting us present today. We know at least two things about teen dating violence. One is that it is common and occurring throughout our region and the country. As this slide shows, 1 in 12 high school students report that they have experienced physical or sexual dating violence. 1 in 4 teens report verbal, emotional, physical, or sexual dating violence. Those individuals who identify as LGBTQ, I'll slow that down just a little bit, get all the letters in there, and females are more at risk for teen dating. And abuse occurs not only in person, but through technology. Abused teens are at a higher risk for partner violence in adulthood. In fiscal year 22-23, I'm sorry, let me get to the second thing we know. The second thing we know is that interventions with teens work, and in 2022 and 2023, Bloom 365, which is a community partner that serves teens, served 3,159 teens with training and support. Of the teens served, 80% reported feeling more confident in getting and giving help and setting and respecting boundaries, specifically around communication, conflict resolution, and identifying healthy and unhealthy relationships. Of the teens who reported abuse, 53% experienced dating violence or sexual violence. Pardon me while I fight with the papers in front of me. Communities throughout the region are responding in a number of meaningful ways. Campaigns promoting healthy teen relationships, creating a method of preventing dating violence. They're utilizing evidence-based and community-driven approaches to provide resources to youth, parents, educators, schools, and neighborhoods about healthy relationships. That includes, as you are aware, some of your cities have youth advisory councils and are utilizing social media contests to raise awareness. Council approved a proclamation and resolution to promote the centers, and councils have approved proclamations and resolutions. The Center for Disease Control and Prevention has a Dating Matters campaign, and the website is provided here. We are strengthening our region as well. The MAG Regional Domestic Violence Council has organized a work group specific to address teen dating violence. MAG has created a website specific for teen dating violence, and that website is provided on this slide. We are partnering with Bloom 365 and continuing to offer trainings. In fact, last year they provided web trainings that are still available on the MAG website. Last year, those were viewed by 140 participants. And I'll turn it back to Kelly.
Madam Chair and members of the committee, this item is for approval of the resolution honoring February as Teen Dating Violence Prevention Awareness Month, and the resolution is available in the materials for today's meeting. We are available for any questions about the resolution or other parts of the presentation. We thank you for your support, and this concludes our presentation.
Thank you so much for the important presentation, and thank you to the council as well as our partners, Bloom 365. Does anyone have any comments, or we probably have time for a leader to share what their community is doing if anyone wishes? All right, then we would council.
I do want to thank you for this. We're following up this week in Chandler with our own resolution. So thank you for your work and leading the cities in that.
I'll just mention too, our Councilman Jerry Friedel, I believe, is on there and will be doing.
Wonderful. Thank you so much to everyone. Do we have a motion?
Madam Chair,
Madam Chair, this is Chip Wilson. I'll move that we approve the resolution.
Wonderful. Thank you. We have a motion from Supervisor Wilson and a second from, I guess, Mayor Harkey might have beaten. Or I'm sorry, from Mayor Wilson. A third. Yes, we got a third from Weiss. There you go. Same drill with online versus cameras on. Can I have a voice vote of those in the room and those online? Those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed say nay.
Aye.
Aye.
Do we need a roll call?
Aye.
Aye.
Let me call just a couple of names, please. Supervisor Goodman. Mayor Molina, how do you vote?
Aye.
Thank you.
You come back to me, I vote aye.
Thank you very much. And Madam Chair, the motion passes.
Wonderful. We have unanimously approved our resolution in support of February as Teen Dating Violence Prevention Awareness Month. Item number 7 is the Pathway Home Highlights and Updates. It is on the agenda for information and discussion. It will be presented by Deputy Executive Director Amy St. Peter. And given the importance of this work, we are going to ask Mayor Wires as well, if you wouldn't mind telling us about what you are doing in Glendale. We'll start with Amy.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair and members of the MAG Regional Council. We are very excited to be able to share this work, the progress that's being made right now in Pathways Home and the efforts to strengthen the regional response to all of your communities are such important partners in this. So I want to thank you for your ongoing partnership as well. I am joined today by Brian Gruters on our MAG team and Jean Marino with the City of Glendale. You'll notice that Katie Gentry is not making the presentation she normally does. She left MAG earlier this month to pursue other adventures, and we wish her well. And we're excited to announce that Brian Gruders has stepped into the leadership role with the homelessness planning team here at MAG. He has a wealth of expertise and he's hit the ground running, and we encourage you to reach out to him so he can better understand your priorities and your opportunities as it relates to homelessness. But first, we'll be sharing a bit of data and the ongoing efforts to strengthen that regional response. You'll notice that this is very familiar to you by now. We continue to make progress in all of these areas. All of the work is underway. Some of the work is done. Some of the work will be ongoing throughout our time together on this journey. Do want to make a special note, though, to thank you for your staff who are part of our local jurisdiction committee. Their feedback really helps us to align these regional efforts in areas that mean the most to you when it comes to addressing homelessness. So thank you for allowing your staff to make the time. We continue to make progress and continue to look for additional ways that we can provide meaning in this space. Today's presentation, though, will largely focus on housing. Access to housing is a critical factor, as noted in Pathways Home. More specifically, in Pathways Home, we recognize the need for an affordable housing public education campaign to increase acceptance of housing that is affordable. We'll be talking just a little bit more about that. But the recognition that we can't solve homelessness, we can't address homelessness if we're not also talking about housing is both a prevention tactic in terms of diverting people away from experiencing homelessness, as well as an intervention to, once they are experiencing homelessness, to lift them out of that and help them into stable housing on their own so the rest of their lives can stabilize as well. So because this is such a critical component in the efforts to address homelessness, we want to share a little bit of data when it comes to our regional housing. You've seen this in your communities as well. Rents have increased significantly throughout the entire region just over the past 4 years. You can see that the darker green represents less than 25% of an increase in rent for that part of the region, all the way up to red where it's more than 100% increase. Rents are increasing to varying extents throughout the region, but they have increased significantly, truly throughout the entire region. This results in households being cost burdened. Cost burdened is generally defined as paying no more than 30% of your income every single month just on housing costs alone. There's also severely cost burdened households, and that's what you see on the screen in front of you right now. And that's where you're spending more than 50% of your income every single month just on housing. That makes you more at risk for experiencing homelessness because it's a lot harder to recover should you have an unexpected bill like a major car repair bill, a medical emergency, or loss of work for some reason. And just a point of note as well that 27% of multifamily renters are severely cost burdened. So whether you own your own home or you're renting, you can be paying more than 30 or 50% of your income. But we find that because rents have increased so much, that renters are the hardest hit when we're looking at those who are cost burdened. And identifying strategies and that really respond to that local need, it can help to look at that neighborhood level. So we know that this is a regional issue, and we know that there are impacts at the local level as well. So this map is showing you where those cost burdened households are at more than 30% of the houses in that neighborhood, or more than 30% of the households in that neighborhood are paying more than 30% every single month just on housing costs. This next slide drives it down even further to show where 50% more of people in that neighborhood are cost burdened. They're paying more than 30% of their income every single month just on housing. Being able to drive it down to that really fine point of detail helps us to align strategies that assist the most in the local communities. Housing affordability is not just a housing cost, it's also the incomes used to pay those costs. And so we wanted to take a look at how much do you have to be earning every single year, in this case, in order to be able to own a home based on a 6% interest rate, or to rent a 1 or a 2 bedroom apartment. And you can see the median price as well as the salary needed then to make that housing affordable to you. Unfortunately, what we're seeing, though, is those salaries, that housing is out of reach for a lot of the people that we rely on in our communities. So when we're talking about firefighters, middle school teachers, construction workers, they can't they can't afford housing right now at that no more than 30% rate. Registered nurses, police officers can afford to rent, not to buy. So when people are saying we don't want those people in our neighborhood, this is in part who they're talking about. They're talking about people that we need in our communities, people that we rely on in our communities. And so as a result, because of those high housing costs, we see that evictions are spreading significantly throughout the region. This map is showing you where those evictions are occurring, Of course, almost 80% of those evictions are happening in those lower income areas, as one might expect. What we might not expect, though, is how much we're outpacing the rest of the country in this regard. In 2023, our rate of eviction filings was 14%. That's almost twice the national rate of 8%. And we haven't seen evictions at this scale since 2005. In 2023, we had more than 80,000 filings, and we haven't seen those numbers since 2005. All of this, of course, contributes to people experiencing homelessness. I'd like to pause for a moment and turn the microphone over to Brian Gruters to talk a little bit more about that with you. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Hope you're all having a great day. So wanted to focus on this slide for just a minute. This is the point in time count represented on a map from last year. So kind of wanted to just highlight mainly that you can see really the dispersal of homelessness here and how widespread it is. I think that doesn't come as a shock to anybody in the room. Side note, wanted to mention real quickly that we just wrapped up the point in time count for this last year. Wanted to say thanks to everybody and your amazing staff for helping to facilitate that. Also, shout out to MAG staff who went out in the rain to count, organize the media, and crunch the numbers. We don't have numbers for you yet, but we will in April, hopefully. The main thing is really just to point out that we are seeing an increase, have been seeing an increase, and that we are hoping to respond with more resources and more appropriate measures to address the problem. We love to report back that we've seen a 44% increase in the last few years of shelter capacity. Thanks in large part to cities that have really stepped up to house that shelter. Big shout out to Phoenix. So that's been instrumental, I think, in really managing this issue. We also know that homes solve homelessness, so we like to focus on what is happening in that vein as well. So if you go to the next slide, we're seeing new permanent affordable housing units being developed really all over the region, and just wanted to really recognize these efforts. Avondale, Buckeye, Chandler, El Mirage, Glendale, Goodyear. I'm not going to read the whole list, but you get the idea. Everybody's stepping up, and that's huge. And that's how we get in front of this problem eventually. We're also seeing new temporary housing units going up as well to really bolster that shelter capacity. So with that, wanted to turn it over to Jean Moreno, but prior, Mayor Wires had anything to address to the group.
So yes, I am Jerry Wires. A lot of people were asking about that. First of all, I want to thank Mayor Gallego for actually asking us to present. I think that she understands the importance of the homeless, as all of you I know do, but I think she's been bearing the brunt of it. And so I want to let you know we're going to do everything we can. So most of you know that I've dedicated endless hours to providing resources to support those who have served our nation. Since before taking elected office, I made the welfare of the U.S. military members and veterans one of my top priorities. As a part of my pledge to veterans, I founded the Mayor's Military Mission, what's commonly referred to as Triple M. Just so you know, I did want to call it 3M, but somebody already took that name. So Triple M membership's grown through strong support from both local business and nonprofit organizations. And my vision for the West Valley is to become synonymous with veteran advocacy and support. Through Triple M, a growing and very passionate group of volunteers, along with my city staff, partners like Veterans Community Project, this vision is absolutely becoming a reality. You can see that we're well on our way through the popularity and support of various initiatives, such as Stand Up for Veterans event that we've done now for 10 years. The mayor's induction ceremony, which oddly enough is celebrating young people out of high school making that decision to serve this country before they ever get sworn in. The mayor's Big Dog Run, a lot of you have participated in that. And also the Veterans Court, which many West Valley cities are participating in now. All of these on their own doesn't sound like it makes a lot of difference to homelessness, but it makes a huge difference. We now have stepped into a new realm, and that's the Veterans Village. It's an initiative, represents my commitment to addressing one of the most pressing issues facing our veteran community, and that is homelessness. What many people don't know is the fastest growing homeless type of person is female. The state of Arizona really liked what we were doing. They've stepped up. They've appropriated $3.2 million in state general funds last year for this project. My city has invested almost $4 million in general fund resources towards land costs. And then this month, the project reached another milestone. The City of Glendale Council approved an IGA with Maricopa County Human Services Department for the development of a transitional housing project for homelessness at-risk veterans in partnership with Veterans Community Project. VCP organization is based out of Kansas, and this will be, I believe, the seventh facility that they're doing. The IGA secures an investment of $3 million towards total capital for the project, which is expected to cap out about $14 million. The site of the proposed project is located, and the reason I very picked this project is right at the very front of the project is Sandy Core VFW Post. The motto of Sandy Core VFW Post 1433 is "We honor the dead by helping the living." The group's committed to helping their fellow veterans. Its members serve the Glendale community with empathy and distinction. The mayor's the Veterans Village project will provide safe, supportive environment, comprehensive supportive services, a path to self-sufficiency. The goal of the project is to give veterans the opportunity to reclaim their lives, rebuild their futures, and once again become productive members of our community. They have about an 85% success rate. That's pretty impressive in my mind. This is only the beginning for Triple M, and our plans is to make the West Valley a haven for veterans. The motto of the City of Glendale is that we improve the lives of the people that we serve each and every day. The Veterans Village project does just that. I can also tell you that I couldn't be more proud of any of my, I can't really say my, but I'm going to, employees for the City of Glendale, and that's Jean Marino. She literally took what she does about 4 years ago, almost 5, 4 years ago, and she has absolutely owned it. She now has cities calling her, state people calling her for information. She's my superstar. Don't try to take her or I will be upset. Anyway, Jean, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Wires. Thank you, Chair Gallego and council members. I don't have any plans of going anywhere. I will finish my career in local government here at the City of Glendale because I love Glendale. I've worked for Glendale for almost 30 years, and I've gotten to do a lot of really cool things, but this particular role in community services is the pinnacle of my career. I will say that. The support that I have from the mayor and our city council and city management team is just phenomenal because this work is really hard. Solving things like homelessness and housing and stability for our community is incredibly challenging, but also rewarding. It's the tragic at the same time as you start really taking a deep dive into these things. So very proud of the work that we're doing. We're doing a lot of great things in Glendale. I've been asked to talk specifically about this particular project. The mayor talked quite a bit about it, but I'll give you a little bit more detail. So Veterans Community Project is a national nonprofit organization. It was founded by combat veterans. They saw a need to help their brothers and sisters who were coming back from wars or who had raised their hand to serve this country and to give their life for this country, and they were falling through the cracks. And it's not a fault of any agency or organization. It just is what it is. And so they saw this need to help combat veterans that they had served with, but really wanted to focus on a community-based solution. So they recognized, it's just like we do at the City of Glendale, that not one agency, entity, partner, or person can solve this problem on their own. It takes a collective group of very passionate individuals to really solve these very difficult problems. So essentially what they look for is partnerships with local jurisdictions, and they have this two-pronged approach. The mayor talked a little bit about it. So they build individual non-congregate housing units for homeless veterans and their families, but then they also provide those on-site supportive services, which is the critical component. They have a variety of national partners who help support their development. The one thing that is unique about this organization, and our project is going to be a little bit different, and I'll talk about that, but they typically are 100% fundraised. So it's all donation based for both capital and operations. So they have embarked upon a national expansion initiative. I will say to Mayor Wires that without his leadership, this project, he and several members of the council, probably along with many of you, had gone to Kansas City for the National League of National League of Cities conference several years ago, and he came back and he said, "We need this. Get started." And so we did. And so we will be added to this list of their national expansion initiative. So essentially what they're looking for from the city of Glendale and the local community is that we provide those community connections to other key stakeholders, partners, agencies, and organizations, that we assisted them with the land acquisition. In our case, we are providing the land. We are paying for that out of the general fund. But that we also help steer that process through the local zoning, because as you know, zoning for transitional housing or shelter can be challenging in communities. So we are committed to navigating that process with them, and that we have to agree to their operational model, which is low barrier, and that we as a city are making an agreement that unless it is absolutely required, we are not going to overregulate how they operate their program. And then obviously supporting those long-term partnerships and community connections. So they're looking to us, they will own and operate, but they're looking to the city of Glendale as well as the regional partners and other cities to also be partners in this work. So they, as I mentioned, they will do a local capital fundraising campaign to raise the balance of the capital that's needed for this project, and then annual operating. All of the funds that they raise through that process here in Arizona will stay local. They keep it all separate. They'll hire local folks to manage and operate. And then this particular project, we established that we would like a minimum of 50 units of transitional housing. The reason why that's important for us is because when we talk about scale and scalability, it's really important to make sure that we're not biting off more than we can chew. And so the small closed campus, non-congregate shelter is what we feel is best, not only for our community, but for the people that will participate in that program. Really taking that housing first approach and really stabilizing them from a housing perspective while we help wrap around those services to help address the long-term needs to help graduate from the program is really important for us. It's part of our mission. We won't get involved in any programs or projects or initiatives unless there is that backup with that wraparound services and that case management. It's important to the long-term success. So as the mayor mentioned, Glendale is invested in this project. As you can see here on the map, this is a location. It's located along Grand Avenue. The reason why this parcel is actually ideal, in addition to the VFW post being nearby, is its location and proximity to that park to the north, which also has a dog park. So as you know, many individuals who are homeless have pets. Their pets tend to be their emotional support animals. I am a pet owner, and I will tell you that if I had to give up my pet to get into shelter, I would say no too. So it's really important to us that this facility has the ability to accommodate people with pets, and that we have locations and facilities nearby to handle their pets as well. As I mentioned, the land is going to require a rezoning process, which we will be assisting with, and obviously, the development process in general. So these are the agencies the mayor's already kind of talked about that have committed funds and resources to the project. I do have to say special thanks to Maricopa County Human Services Department and obviously the state of Arizona. Maricopa County Human Services Department has been a critical partner to the city of Glendale since the beginning of the pandemic, and has really in terms of being able to do things that made sense for our community. And so we're super excited about that continued partnership with them. And then the budget and timeline, just real quick, the mayor mentioned it's about a $14.2 million project. Because we're very excited about this in our region, we were able to bring that $6.2 million to the table to address capital costs. So there's about an $8 million gap that they're going to be launching a public campaign for fundraising around that. And it will be a phased build out that we're expecting will take about 24 months to full completion. And with that, that concludes my presentation on the development, but I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Madam Chair, could I add one more thing? to
Please,
that?
Mayor.
The one thing that I wanted Jean to finish her portion before I talked about the other. The thing I'd like all of you to think about is I believe 100% that this will be successful because we're going to make it successful. But with that said, with this working the way that I know it works, I don't believe anybody could tell me that this exact same scale couldn't work for foster kids. Foster kids is one of the biggest problems that we have right now. These kids are coming out of foster homes. They don't have the skills they need to be on their own successfully. I believe exactly the same type of village could be done for foster kids. So when we get it open, as we're building it, I invite all of you to come out, see what we're doing, see how we're doing it. But I really believe that this isn't the answer, but I think it's one of the answers. And I couldn't be more pleased to have people like Jean and really all the folks in Glendale behind us. So any questions for Jean, but I just wanted to bring that along also.
Wonderful. Congratulations, Mayor and Jean. That's
Thank you.
Thank you.
a great project. Our veterans are lucky that you are stepping up.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair and members of the MAG Regional Council. We have just a few calls to action. The first is more of a thank you. Thank you so much again to you, to your point in time count coordinators. It takes every community in the region participating in order to support our regional application to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development for those homeless assistance funds that come in at more than $35 million each year. So we're talking about a lot of money, a lot of effort, and thanks to you. The counting is done, but the analysis is just beginning. So we look forward to continuing to work with your staff to better understand the results of that point in time count, and then to release them all together regionally coming this April. Also, thanks to your council members and your staff who are able to participate in our latest housing webinar on January 18th. Those materials and the recording of the webinar are now available on the Vitalis Health Foundation website. This webinar was presented as part of a collaborative with our community partners. So please do take a look at that. We're also excited to announce a new $500,000 grant from JP Morgan Chase Foundation. This grant over 2 years will help us to provide really customized technical assistance in areas that are of interest to you when it comes to building and preserving affordable housing. So if you'd like to participate in that, please do let us know. We're working very closely with our 2 human services committees to identify those areas that might be of interest to you. And then we'll issue a competitive request for proposals to identify the consultants who have deep expertise in those areas that respond to the priorities that you've expressed. Our regional education campaign continues. We expect those regional media buys to start next month and to last through the end of this calendar year. Thank you again to the communities who have contributed financially to that regional media campaign. And thanks to all of you. Hopefully you're downloading the toolkit and encouraging others to do the same, sharing messages about housing that's affordable to folks through your social media and through any other outlets. And then, of course, please do meet with Brian if you have that interest. He has a lot of resources and a lot of questions. He's wanting to understand how homelessness manifests very specifically in your communities. And Brian and his talented team are here to support you in every effort. That does conclude our presentation. We're happy now to take any questions or comments that you might have.
Wonderful. Thank you to the MAG team for a successful point in time count. And Supervisor Galvin, congratulations on the partnership with Glendale to support our veterans. Mayor Harkey.
Yeah, just a quick question. And I know it's not today or tomorrow, but when do you hope to have the point in time results out for 2024?
Thank you very much. Mayor Hartke, Madam Chair, and members of the MAG Regional Council. Our goal right now is by April. I know that seems like a long time, but we really want to make sure that we're working closely with your staff to verify that data and then to be able to present kind of that regional picture that we can share all together.
Would that potentially be a May presentation to us then, or?
We would be happy to do that, Mayor. Yes.
Thank you.
Mayor, if I could just, I want to really emphasize the point about the grant that Amy procured the $500,000 technical assistance grant. We'll get you more information, but this is really for you and your communities to provide you assistance where you may, like, I need help with something on affordable housing. Stay in touch with Amy because we do have resources for your community to get expertise to help you with those hard questions you may have in affordable housing. So
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. And again, thank you to the Glendale team. I always find it helpful for me just to see real examples of projects moving forward and to know who you can ask. So hopefully others found that valuable. And if you have a success story you want to share, please let me or our executive director know. With that, we will transition to item.
Madam Chair, this is Supervisor Goodman. I have one question of staff, if I might.
Please.
I noticed on the study that was done, I didn't see anything that included Pinal County, any portion of that. And you've got Mayor Smith, you've got part of Queen Creek that's in our area, and you've got Mayor Wilson. And then, of course, I'm the self-proclaimed mayor of Santan Valley. So I guess the question is, do you have any studies that go into Pinal County as well in regards to homelessness?
Madam Chair, members of the MAG Regional Council, and Mayor, yes, with homelessness, it's a bit bifurcated. So when it comes to the point in time count and the continuum of care activities, Pinal County is governed by a different continuum of care. But when it comes to regional homelessness, yes, we do have that information when it's more member agency driven. So we're happy to meet with you and your team to provide that information and any others who might be interested as well.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, Chair. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Wonderful. We will now go to item 8, which is the Regional 911 Service transition to the state contract. It is on the agenda for approval. The item will be presented by Special Projects Administrator Nathan Pryor and Information Technology Director Audrey Skidmore.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the Regional Council. As the Chair pointed out, this item is on for action today. Before we get to the action, I'm going to provide a little bit more background and context regarding 911 in the Maricopa region, specifically within Maricopa County and MAG's role in that. So since the mid-1980s, through an agreement with the City of Phoenix, Maricopa Region 911, also known as MR 911, which is an office within the City of Phoenix, has been providing service and support to the region's public safety answering point for 911 services. So public safety answering points, it's also a way of calling out 911 call centers. The MAG Regional Council has had a role in approving this agreement going back to the 1980s. So during the significant growth over the past 30 plus years, MR 911 and the 911 call centers within the respective MAG member agencies in Maricopa County, we have done an exemplary job of providing critical 911 services to the public. This has meant not only keeping up with population growth, but also with rapid changes in technology. I'd like to recognize Liz Graber. She's the Maricopa Region 911 Administrator with the City of Phoenix Fire, sitting over there, for all the work that she's done and her staff as well over the years. A little bit of background in terms of volumes we're seeing in our calls to 911. In 2023, there were over 3.4 million calls to 911 within Maricopa County. During that same time period, we saw over 16,000 texts to 911 and 148 activations of the Community Emergency Notification System, also known as Reverse 911. All this work has been going on through fiscal constraints of having the lowest excise tax for 911 telecommunications in the United States at 20 cents. So Arizona has the lowest excise tax for 911 telecommunications in the U.S. at 20 cents, collecting about $19 million statewide annually. Since implementation of 911 in the region, MAG as an agency has had a role in convening conversations on the region's 911 system within Maricopa County. This has included, but not been limited to, developing and recommending budgets to the Arizona Department of Administration, which has administrative oversight on state 911 issues. During the past 14 months, the MAG 911 Study Committee, you can see the composition on the screen, has utilized an independent third-party consultant to review our current 911 system. We are pleased to share that the review concluded that MR 911 continues to provide the region with a resilient, robust, and redundant 911 services to the residents of Maricopa County. An additional part of the consultant review was conducted on aspects of the state of Arizona's contract service for 911. The consultant provided 7 scenarios for the potential future of 911 in the region. With these options in hand, throughout last year, the co-chairs of the 911 Study Committee, Chris Brady, the Mesa City Manager, and Kevin Phelps, the Glendale City Manager, with participation by Jeff Barton, the Phoenix City Manager, held a number of meetings with ADO staff to gain a better understanding of state contract services. Just want to thank the chairs of that committee and to the study committee members and the member agencies for your participation. A significant amount of time was spent on issues to which Audrey Skidmore will provide more details, but we'd like to thank ADOA staff for their ongoing involvement with us. And if they could stand, members of ADOA staff here today include J.R. Sloan, the Chief Information Officer for the state, Lisa Meyerson Marshall, Chief of Enterprise Programs and Consulting, Travis Jensen, the 911 System Administrator, and Jimmy Arwood, the Legislative Liaison. Thanks for all your work and working with us. Madam Chair, there is an action in front of you. I'll put it up on the screen now. We're going to hear a little bit more from Audrey Skidmore about some of the details regarding state contract services, but the action requested is an approval to transition to state contract services for regional 911 services, and you can see the rest on the screen. It's important to note that this approval serves as a milestone that demarcates the beginning of a period of transition for Maricopa Region Public Safety Answering Points, Maricopa Region 911, ADOA, and MAG. To be clear, much work will need to be done to ensure a seamless transition while providing critical public safety services if this action is approved. Madam Chair, members of council, Audrey Skidmore is here to provide additional details on elements of state contract services and other issues that need to be addressed pending action by MAG.
Thank you, Chair, members of the committee. If we go to the next slide. So there are a number of discussion points we're continuing to have with ADOA. You can see them listed here. I'm just going to provide a brief understanding of what they are. Policy routing functions. This is about how and when calls are routed to other PSAPs. Part of this transition to the state system brings us fully into NextGen 911. And there are some additional options available to the PSAP. So understanding what those are and how to incorporate those into their work. Data center locations, there's an opportunity to look at the quantity and location of those in the next RFP cycle. Regional procurement and contracts. So agencies can either contract individually with the vendors or they can contract as a group. The vendors are open to both. There are advantages and disadvantages to both, so still another discussion item. Service level agreements. This is how quickly vendors respond if there's an issue. We're working with the ADOA to look at those and strengthen those where possible. The funding process. We are gaining a better understanding of the existing funding process and how that might change in the future and opportunities to streamline that and understand better how the extras would be funded. And then finally, transition. I think it's important to note that ADOA will be funding MR 911 fully through the end of the transition period plus 30 days to ensure that we maintain our high level of service and have a successful transition. And then we have a draft transition schedule provided by ADOA. I would like to note that this is draft. This is subject to the availability of equipment, what works with your agency, the availability of phone lines, but it gives you kind of an idea of where we're going. And then if we move on, this is the action we are requesting today, and we would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions?
Mayor, I think it's important to note, none of this takes away from the, I'll call it sovereignty of each of your cities to make your own decisions, because each of you will enter into the contract with ADOA, or some of you have contracts with MCSO or in a neighboring jurisdiction to provide your 911 services already. So this action does not interfere with currently how each of your cities is operating 911. What it's doing is the previous system where it was centralized in terms of service is transitioning to the statewide contract after discussion by the management and PSAP members.
Wonderful. Do we have a motion?
Second.
Motion from Mayor Hartke, second from Mayor Orsborn. If everyone online, please turn on your camera. We'll have a voice vote of those in the room and online. Those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say nay. Members, please leave your camera on. Staff, can you take a roll call of members participating virtually who did not turn on their cameras?
Thank you, Madam Chair. It appears everyone has their camera on and the motion passes.
Nicely done, everyone. Item 9 is on the agenda for approval. This item will be presented by Transportation Funding Program Manager Patrick Stone. It's related to the Federal Highway Administration funding fiscal year closeout.
Thank you, Chair Gallegos, members of Regional Council. Pleasure to be here to present this item. I'm going to take a few moments before I actually get into my closeout presentation to actually talk about how specific items like closeout impact the Transportation Improvement Program, or TIP. If you'll note in your agenda packet today, there are actually 3 items that impact the TIP. We have items 5B and 5C that were on the consent agenda approved previously, and then we have agenda item 9 here for closeout that also impacts the TIP. And we don't have a, before I talk about TIP amendments, the TIP itself, there's really 2 high-level documents that oversee regional planning and programming. We have the Regional Transportation Plan Momentum 2050. We also have the Transportation Improvement Program. If you think about the Regional Transportation Program, it's really the long-range vision for the region. It's the blueprint of how we do transportation. A couple things to note: required by federal law, must be fiscally constrained, must be updated at least every 4 years. So that's the high-level overview. If you move down a level, you have the Transportation Improvement Program, or the TIP. The TIP is really the implementation strategy of the RTP. It's a near-term detailed listing of regionally significant projects, and it also serves as the first 4 years of the RTP. Similar to the RTP, it has to be fiscally constrained. It is required by law. And also, and I did not note on the slide, it's required to be updated every 4 years, but because of the dynamic nature of the TIP, we usually update it more frequently. I do like this graphic. Kudos out to John Bullen. I did borrow this from a presentation he gave to TPC back in August, but I think this is a very good graphic, and it kind of shows how things interact. At the top, you have the RTP that's kind of overarching. Underneath that, you see our Regional Strategic Transportation Infrastructure Investment Plan, the RSTIP. And I really want to draw attention to the other 3 boxes. You have the state-funded projects, locally funded projects, and also privately funded projects. And underneath that, you've seen I've put a thing regionally significant. The TIP isn't just the funding sources the region controls. We also include those regionally significant projects, usually on the arterial grid network, that are funded by other sources, either ADOT funded, local funded, or we have private developers. And all of that comprises the TIP, which is the first 4 years of the RTP. So if you think about the TIP, and I wanted to use the cover here, it's a point in time. So this was approved December 1st, 2021. Well, since then, a lot has occurred in 2 years. We've had regional competitive awards. We've had project deferrals come through this committee process. Member agencies have been awarded federal discretionary grants. We've had new developer-funded projects in your communities. Your member agencies have updated your capital improvement programs. We've also had scope changes come through the process. We've had funding adjustments based on actual data. And specific to the conversation today, we actually have had closeout awards. One thing they all have in common, they're TIP amendments. These necessitate a TIP amendment. So when we think about TIP amendments, there are really 2 types of TIP amendments. We have those that require a new finding of conformity, and then we have those that just require a consultation. For those that are conformity contingent approvals, those are usually regionally significant projects, and it's usually projects that affect, They're capacity projects. And usually when we take these through on a conformity cycle, it's because of a change in scope or change in schedule. Traditionally, we do a finding of conformity in June or as needed, and provided as part of that process is the 30-day public comment period.
Patrick, can you just explain what conformity actually means? What is it conforming to? Air quality, yes.
Yeah, it's a finding. It's a new finding of conformity for air quality. It means when we take those documents through in June, those proposed changes won't have the region exceed air quality standards. So our air quality section here in attendance, they do that research, that analysis, and do that finding that says all of these proposed changes were still in a agreement with federal air quality.
And that is a requirement of federal law that we.
It is a requirement of federal law. But we also have changes to the tip that don't require a new finding of conformity. We have certain types of projects in the region that are considered exempt from air quality, active transportation, intersection improvements, various types of projects that don't have capacity impacts are exempt from that. As you saw in the agenda packet for today, items 5B and 5C, those are not conformity contingent adjustments. And also this item today for closeout does not require a new finding of conformity. So how do amendments process through the cycle? So scope changes and deferrals actually as a requirement of our federal policy, programming policies that Regional Council approved in June 2015, require that scope changes and deferrals actually start at the technical committee where that project was originally awarded. From there, those requests move on to Transportation Review Committee. And also at TRC, we see other changes come into the process, such as life cycle projects, closeout, requests from ADOT. Those all then come into the process at TRC. They move through Management Committee and TPC, and we arrive where we're at today at Regional Council, where we would have final approval. So with that kind of sets the table for the closeout conversation. Fiscal year 2024 closeout, it's guided by the policies, the federal fund programming guidelines approved in 2015, state that every year we do a closeout process. We look if there's available funding, and we have priorities that we consider when we do closeout. Purpose, it's just to ensure that we use all federal funding suballocated to the region. If we have excess funding, we find ways to utilize that funding. We won't ever turn a dollar back to the state or to the feds. It's use or lose. So when we work with member agencies that want closeout funding, we have to have some assurances that they'll be able to in the current federal fiscal year. And while we do the closeout process every year, we look at closeout, there's no guarantee that we'll have funding. The lion's share of where the funding comes from that funds closeout comes from usually project deferrals and bid savings. On the screen here, it just highlights what types of projects compete for closeout funding. The 3 life cycle programs, the arterial, the freeway, and the transit life cycle programs are not eligible for closeout funding. So it's really everything else that you see competing for closeout. So for fiscal year 24, on the left, I've kind of highlighted what types of requests the region received for closeout. We had a couple of requests to advance construction projects from a future fiscal year. And you'll see on the next slide, not a surprise, most of the requests for cost overruns or cost shortfalls on projects. And the right just gives a fiscal picture of where we're at. We start with the funding available to the region, take out the programmed projects in the tip, tells us what our closeout amount is, and then we make that available to the region. We get those requests, and at this point, we have enough funding to fund all closeout requests. So here is the breakdown of the requests. We did receive 34 requests from member agencies, just over 36 million. As you can see, 17 of those requests, or half, were for construction shortfalls, and that represented about 25 million of the 36 million. Oops, my apologies. And with that, Madam Chair and members of the Regional Council, that concludes my presentation.
So just a couple of things I'd add there, Chairman and committee. There's sort of the stereotype of, government at the end of the year runs out to spend all the money on things it doesn't need, like pencils and computer screens. In transportation, that stereotype doesn't hold, because what we know is we have way more needs for transportation funding than we ever have funding available. So the closeout process is actually allocating money to things that we know we have to do. We just didn't have enough money at the beginning of the year in our planning and budgeting to do that. But because projects slip and they don't go as fast as they should, or other things happen, there is this money at the end of the year. So that's why we put it there. And in terms of the project shortfalls, that's really an example of where we're all experiencing inflationary pressures. I'm sure your city engineers are coming to you constantly with construction costs. This has allowed us to keep projects moving, even in the face of construction price pressure and inflation. And so it's a good way for us not to get caught up in that and to keep the projects you care about moving forward for the region. So just that added context. Madam Chair, thank you.
Thank you. Very helpful. Any questions? Mayor Weiss.
When you talk about conformity and the engineers at MAG look through it and say, okay, we're going to increase capacity on this roadway. They put all the information in the computer. Does that information then have to go back to the feds for them to approve? I might have missed that. Or is there guidelines that they fit into that? Because I'm wondering if sending it to the Fed slows down the process quite a bit.
Thank you, Mayor Weiss, Chair Gallego, members of the Regional Council. Yeah, very astute observation. It's a federal requirement to get that finding of conformity. So when MAG says we've determined that we have a finding of conformity, it does actually go to our federal partners to concur with that finding. And I believe it's for an approval as well. Thanks.
Thank you. We do have one member of the public to comment, Diane Barker.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Chairwoman Gallego. I'm Diane Barker, and I am downtown Phoenix. I just spoke in District 7 over at City Council. That's why I'm a little bit late. It's city infrastructure, and I want to tie it in with this item here. Although I don't see any direct closeout monies, as I understand from the presentation, transit doesn't get these. We talked about last month, and it's on the minutes, Ed Zerker, about $3.5 million. And this is from the closeout savings. And we had talked about the eligibility of Rio Reimagined, which can be a place, in my mind, can be development of even affordable housing. It can be a wonderful thing that can happen to solve a lot of our problems. But basically, what I'd like to say on this agenda specifically, there is a bicycle connectivity with a Tempe and Scottsdale that I would be in favor for. I'm just making a statement, though, because I haven't analyzed all this, but I see that transit was on the subcommittee of, I was on the management committee previous this month to this, and she's not there. A lot of you will put a proxy on there. I'm wanting Jessica Miller to get involved with Big Plan, the whole Transportation 400. They're sitting over there. I was kicked out of a meeting that is, Mario said, Payano of the city deputy. He just told me it was a quorum and I should have been there. And they kicked me to the road and they said at the DoubleTree, the dignitaries were coming here as the governor. They had food and like this. This was for the opening of the light rail extension. I think it was positive over there. I went to the public event that was announced, for Saturday. It's the first time I've seen elevated rail that works outside of the airport. So, but the thing is, they're closed. That's an entity over there. I've experienced it through the years. This has got to stop. You've got Proposition 400 coming around, and a lot of people don't want transit. Now, I told them they're cutting their nose off by kicking me out of that meeting because it should have been there. I didn't need to eat their food. They had a lot of this, and it was Valley Metro that doesn't understand how to treat the public that's paying the bill.
Thank you, Diane, for that testimony. And Tony from my team and I will try to follow up. It was not a MAG meeting or event, but we can see if we can follow up in that area. And do we have any comments? Are we ready for a motion? Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Final chance to turn on your cameras. All those in favor in the room and online, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Roll call of people with cameras off.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Everyone has their cameras on and the motion passes.
Nicely done. All right. We got a lot of good news to celebrate. We'll turn to item 10, the Executive Director's Report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We haven't been together for since November, so we have a few things to cover today. Just want to highlight some collaboration occurring in the Northwest Valley. Mayor Hall can testify to this. Along US 60 and Grand Avenue, MAG and ADOT and the City of Surprise, Bob Wingenroth, manager, and his staff have been working together to address growing traffic congestion near 303 and 163rd Avenue on US 60. Considerable development there. So MAG, ADOT joined City of Surprise to present at a district community meeting near the Christmas holiday to provide an update on planning activities. And it was an important meeting. Everyone may not have gotten the answers that they all wanted to hear, but they got their questions asked and were answered to the best degree we could with that. And I want to thank Brad Williams, Tim Stroh, and John Bullen for going to that meeting for their efforts. And this is one of those, we're going to say this more, improvements. We can do the planning now. We have funding for planning now, but improvements for this area are contingent upon the passage of Prop 479. That's going to be something we're going to be saying more and more over the next, the next 10 months, but on into 2026. So 479 is critical, and this is a great example of an area where it will provide significant relief. Secondly, I wanted to bring your attention to a recent Arizona poll noting the upward trend of Arizona's support for policies that support clean air. The American Lung Association notes the support of strategies like modernizing fleets, deployment of electric vehicles, which we've talked about in here, as strategies for Arizonans increasingly supporting policies for clean air. And it's particularly relevant for us as we think about what we do here at MAG related to air quality attainment and what our residents value. And I want to note that the American Lung Association commended MAG's pursuit of the Climate Pollution Reduction Grant and plan development work in their write-up. Speaking of climate pollution reduction, we are continuing to work that grant that was authorized for us to coordinate by the regional council. We had required public open houses at Mesa Community College, the Cesar Chavez Community Center, and in Pinal County, where we hosted over 500 people either there or attended virtually to provide feedback. And I want to acknowledge Elias Toon from our staff and the entire environmental team who staffed those with our communications group. The timeline to pull this is 30 days from today. We have to have the grant submitted to the EPA, and then 30 days after that, the participating entities need to submit for the grant money. So we have to submit the plan March 1st, and then EPA has required April 1st as the date for the first round of grant submittals. We talked a bit about the next one, the point in time count, but I do want to recognize specifically the MAG team and 1,000 volunteers on the point in time count of homelessness on January 23rd. A very rainy morning, as many of you experienced, started at 5 a.m. Many people started earlier. And there also, I took a picture there. Brian Gruters is in that blue jacket, standing on a barrel, looking over the sound wall at the I-10 near downtown. I will validate and attest the fact that Brian and I moved the trash can back so the Phoenix Public Works Department can rest easy. The trash can is back where it needs to be, but Brian was doing that to try to count some folks who were camping over the side of the sound wall. That's just one example of many things that went on. As you can see, lots of water. Next slide, please. We had lots of media attention, 3, 5, 10, 12, 15, Univision and Telemundo, PBS Horizon, print radio. It was very widely covered this year, which thanks to all of your city staffs and our communication group here, Kelly Taft and the team. So I want to thank the human services team here at MAG. See a few of them there. Would you guys just stand up? And Kelly, your team who also participated, if you got here at 5 a.m. and went out in the rain and counted, thank you. Well done. Now, some of the more quiet things we do. Good news for those of you who are financially attuned. Our external auditors have completed the financial statement audit and the federal single audit required for 23, and they've issued an unmodified opinion with no deficiencies. So I want to congratulate Summer Fegley, our fiscal services director, and the team for doing that. It's also the 25th consecutive Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting from the GFOA, Government Finance Officers Association. So it's one of those things that you don't pay attention to it unless it's a disaster. It was not a disaster, but I want to pay attention to it because it's good work. And you guys go through this in your cities as well. So you know the drill on this. Good news. Next one, as many of you have already seen and read, Chairwoman Gallego had an exciting announcement about nonstop service from Phoenix to Paris, France. And Mayor, I don't know if you want to say anything about this service.
We are very excited. It had been our largest European market where we have the most demand, but not direct service. And it is our first foreign flag carrier that's providing this type of mainland service. They did want me to tell everyone there's champagne in every class of service.
Oh.
And so we'll be starting service in May, and apparently around the Olympics, it is already sold out, but generally we would love it if people would support this because then we think it can continue. They are also very excited about what's happening in the region on economic development. There are a lot of French companies in transportation and semiconductors. So all the work that we do here together helped get this great service. And the next week February 15th, we start nonstop service to Tijuana. So another new destination, Monterrey, Mexico being the one before that. And I think we are the only airport providing that service out of the US. So really becoming more connected. And Mayor Weiss we're going to need you to take one of these flights to support the regional
Well, my wife and I are planning a trip. I don't know if it's to Paris, but I will tell you that I think it kind of goes unnoticed when the region gets a large player like Air France. We think about the tourism dollars and people coming here, but the truth is it really drives economic development in our hotels in the region and our restaurants. I remember when Condor came into Phoenix, I was working at the Wigwam. That was a huge deal, especially for historic hotels like the Wigwam, the Biltmore. It starts out slowly, but really all the mayors who get on board with that, with your tourism boards, it really does help for a letter of support for that, saying we welcome visitors, we welcome this. And it's a great get for the city of Phoenix and for a region.
Yes, so please take advantage of it.
And so the MAG connection to this is that last bullet point. Our regional analytics division did some behind the scenes work to help early planning efforts with Sky Harbor staff so that they could provide data to the French-owned businesses investments, which Mayor Gallego mentioned, to build the case to deliver the service to Sky Harbor. So I want to recognize Peter Burnett and the analytics division team, also Sapna Gupta, who was part of the communication and coordinates our economic development efforts. And Sapna speaks French, so I think she's particularly interested in this flight from a personal level, but the whole team really pitched into that. So very good. Getting towards the end here, last weekend was an opening of a Prop 400 project, the Northwest Light Rail Extension, Phase 2, that goes across I-17 to the old Metro Center Mall area. It was opened on Saturday, and it is an example of a Prop 400 supported project being delivered as promised to the voters. So together with Phoenix's sales tax, the regional sales tax, and federal grant funding. The next slide shows just a few more of those. So congratulations to Valley Metro and City of Phoenix for this. Our staff were out for the community fair, talking to folks. And then associated with that, the Federal Transit Administrator, Nuria Fernandez, after the event, I think wanted to take a tour of light rail to find out affordable housing sites and what the plans were. I'm not sure, Mayor Gallego, if you accompanied her on that one, but our own Kelly Williams, Human Services Director, was with the FTA Administrator showing some of the sites that are in the city of Phoenix that are planned for potential affordable housing. And so thank you, Kelly, for doing that. Second to last, just some news. The ADOT folks know this, but how do freeways get numbered? Well, it has to go through an official process. So our Pinal partners, led by Mayor McFarland from Casa Grande, but also I know Mayor Smith and others from Pinal County were involved in getting the state route designation for what they call the North-South Parkway. That's runs from, I think, is at the end of 24 as it go up to 60. Anyway, you can see it on there. And that's a corridor that's being developed. And they wanted to give it a distinct name that tied it into a sense of the region. And so the ADOT process came up with the 505, which I think was satisfactory to Mayor McFarland and the Pinal folks. Ms. Daniels, you were probably there for that. So it's just it's an example of how the system is continuing to be perceived. And so there's now a State Route 505 designated corridor in Pinal County. And finally, a big one that you all have heard about is the Gila River Indian Community I-10 project. I know many of you have sent congratulations. Many of you participated in lobbying for this. I want to congratulate Governor Roe Lewis, particularly. The Gila River Indian community really pushed hard with our senators and congressmen for this. And so the I-10 widening project was awarded $95 million, which is the last funding piece to allow it to move forward and complete that. So I don't know, Ms. Daniels, if you wanted to add anything to this, but this is a big deal, I know, for ADOT.
It is a big deal, and I am happy to report that things are on time and what I was told, within budget, not on budget, within budget. So I guess it's a technical term.
Again, a significant regional achievement, and it contains more than $220 million of Prop 400 money to fund the Maricopa County portion of the I-10 project. So again, without Prop 400, the I-10 widening project would be $220 million underwater. And so again, it's a great example of how the region's commitment to a sales tax source in Maricopa County has helped provide state and nationally significant transportation. So with that, Mayor, I'll just say next month we are going to talk more about the implementation of Prop 479 as we prepare for what we believe will be successful passage by the voters. We do need to start putting in place the processes for the next 20 years in freeways, arterial street programs, and in the transit program, which all have changes from 400 to 479. So we'll begin that dialogue next month. Thank you, Mayor.
Wonderful. Lots of good news. I know a lot of us in this room were very involved with this particular project, and it'll be great to see it move forward. We are at the major corridors now moving in every direction. We're making huge progress on, which is exciting for our region. And perhaps we will have Amtrak going in a similar corridor. For that mayors along that corridor, Amtrak may be convening cities soon in that area to talk about what's happening with the state and federal funding moving forward. Item 11 is the legislative update. We will turn to Chief of Staff Audrey Kester Thomas.
Chairwoman Gallego, members of Regional Council, I'll start by thanking you for all of your hard work, in part because the tenor of our legislative updates will be very different than they have been for the last 2 years, because we were successful in getting enabling legislation, of course, through at the end of session last year. We are in the second regular session of the 56th legislature and far surpassed the 1,000 bill file mark already. We've been focused on tracking dozens of bills related to the work we do here at MAG, including environmental matters, matters relating to homelessness and housing, and of course, many related to transportation, including several repeat bills that we saw last year as well. On January 12th, the governor released her executive budget. While we know the legislature is responsible, of course, for building a budget, the executive budget is largely doctrine of policy. And so we obviously evaluate and review it. Notable in the executive budget are solutions for addressing the 2-year budget deficit, which ranges anywhere from $1.4 billion in the executive budget to a JLBC estimate of $1.7 billion over the next 2 years. Several one-time funding appropriations were identified as part of her proposed budget cuts, including several transportation projects for which are near and dear to many of your hearts, including the US or SR 30 utility relocation, Riggs Road overpass of 347, I-10 Jackrabbit Trail TI, extension of 24 into Pinell County, and Loop 303 design for the TI with I-17, just to name a few. But ending on a positive note, I certainly want to acknowledge a presence that we had at the legislature last week. MAG was requested to appear before the Arizona House of Representatives Appropriations Subcommittee on Fiscal Accountability. The hearing was focused on the Highway User Revenue Fund, or HERF, and transportation needs around the state. Chief of Transportation, John Bullen, provided an overview of MAG's freeway program, including the Freeway Lifecycle Program and how it's managed, the Transportation Policy Committee, and then here at MAG Regional Council, as well as the impact of the half-cent sales tax relative to HERF in expanding the region's freeway system, as well as the critical role it plays in supporting the state's endeavors to acquire federal discretionary funding, as illustrated just in the previous slide with the successful award of I-10. The presentation was very well received and with many compliments in support of the work we do here and you all do here in the region, both from Chairwoman Bliss and Representative Dunn. That completes my report, Madam Chairwoman. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Appreciate the update. Requests for future agenda items.
This
Board
isn't
Member Dunn.
actually a request, but I did want to let the board know that tomorrow ADOT will be having our board will be having an extensive study session that will kick off the 5-year plan. So we're on time for that. Obviously very cognizant of the potential sweeps from the legislature and needing to have some flexibility in that plan to incorporate whatever may come our way. And also, I know what's been of interest to you all is the litter management program. So we have an update on that tomorrow as well at our study session, because I know that's been a hot topic here at our MAG. So I'll report back through Mr. Zucker when that occurs. But if you have questions or thoughts, or if your staff need to reach out to me, I think I've met with every municipality staff thus far to make sure that you knew that there was a conduit of transportation conversation through the ADOT board, but happy to field any questions that your staff might have as well as soon as we get that tentative 5-year plan off the ground tomorrow. Thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you. Any comments from the committee? Congratulations to Mayor Dickey on State of the Town.